All right, I was just asking Jeff if he could take more questions afterward, and he does have to head home. But I wanted to segue off of what Carolyn Betts had asked, which is how can we make a difference? Well, that is why we do have Kay Godwin here to speak to us tonight. Now, Kay Godwin is another amazing person. If I just listed the things she has founded or co-founded: co-founder of Georgia Conservatives in Action, co-founder Capital Coalition of Conservative Leaders, co-founder Georgia Republican Assemblies, co-founder Calling All Moms. I can list on and on. The best thing about her, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were a legislator in the past, right? No, you were not. But she comes up every year from Blackshear, Georgia, and she goes to the Gold Dome. Now that's a long way. It's about 5 hours to get up to Atlanta. So they rent an apartment. They sleep in sleeping bags sometimes. It is not glamorous. But they are there diligently working so she can tell us what does and doesn't work and how do you track some of these bills. So that's why we wanted Kay Godwin here to give us a little bit of information from her vast amount so that we can know how to track these bills and make a change.
This is a long way from home, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share with you. My name is Kay Godwin. And you need to. Anyway, my name is Kay Godwin. I'm from South Georgia. My cohort is Pat Tippett. We actually started this journey pretty much at the same time. What got us started in it was sex education. I was sitting in my operatory. I'm a dental hygienist, and all of a sudden it come across the radio that Jocelyn Elders was fixing to give out condoms in schools. And it touched my heart so impactfully that I sat there and tears run down my face. And I don't normally cry into this sort of stuff. But I began to ask the Lord, Lord, how in the world did we get to this point that we're going to hand out condoms in school to children? And it was as though the Lord spoke to my heart and said, Kay, because of people just like you, what have you done to stand in the gap? And that's where the tears come from, because I had done nothing. I'm probably one of the first women's livers, because back whenever women started running more for office, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to look for. So I just figured if you were a woman, you were better than a man. So I just voted for all the women that were on the ballot, whether you were Democrat or Republican. And, we laugh about that, but how many people do the same thing? How many people go to the polls uneducated and they vote stupid things just like I did? Many, many people do. They vote for the wrong reasons, or they vote because they have no reason. And it's just because of a situation similar to as a woman on the ballot. So anyway, there was an Eagle Forum convention coming up, and I had gone to my pastor, and I told him, I said, I feel led of the Lord to get involved in politics. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And he said, well, Kay, the Southern Baptists have a Civic and Moral Concerns Committee. Go talk to them. So I did. I went to my association and I told them what had happened, and I said I want to be a part. And he said, I'll go down the street and talk to our Civic and Moral Concerns. I did. And he told me, he said, you can have the job. I knew nothing, but he gave me the job to be over our whole 44 churches, to be the Civic and Moral Concerns person. Well, then an Eagle Forum meeting come up. Well, that's where Pat and I met. And we have been hooked at the hip ever since. Mother-daughter, she's about 10 years younger than I am. And we both started with sex education. Pat had a book in her school system that had been in that system for 12 years that talked about putting condoms on bananas in their school. And this is in South Georgia. The book actually had sections in it to where it said that the definition of bestiality was when you had sex with an animal because there was not a human partner available. This book had not been brought home from the school system for 12 years. Pat took it to the school board and began to start reading out of it. And they told her you couldn't talk like that. at the school board. So we have been trouble with a capital T ever since. And so we started coming to Atlanta. When we were younger, we could drive back and forth. You know, it wasn't that big a deal, but as we've gotten older, it has become more difficult, and we decided the way, about 5 years ago, the way we could be more beneficial was to actually be at the Capitol on a daily basis. Because bills and things happen so quickly down there that if you're not there, you may never know what is going on. So anyway, now we're at the Capitol, usually Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursdays, the way they were meeting, but this year it's been kind of sped up. And you can look at that as possibly a good thing, or you can look at it as possibly a bad thing, because we've got some good bills this year that are going to be introduced to try to get passed. And if I was being realistic, I would probably take it and just shred the bills we're looking at in half, because the likelihood that they're going to get passed are very unlikely. About 3 years ago, we started the Capitol Coalition of Conservative Leaders. The reason that we did that is because we began to really understand, as separate individuals, we're never going to be that effective. We have Georgia Conservatives in Action, and we know a lot of people. We've been going up there 25 years. That gives you some access into offices. But one group of people cannot be that effective. So we said, what if we start joining the different groups together? So we did. We're about a third Tea Party groups, third social conservatives, and a third activists like Judy Kraft is part of our group. Some of the most outstanding activists in the state are part of our group. We have started being very effective. The first year, we kind of did our bills and went on about our business. By the end of the year, legislators were coming to us and wanting to know if they could present their bills to us. And we started letting them, and we determined whether they were good bills or they weren't good bills, and whether we were going to help them or we weren't going to help them. But it also began to give us more access into their offices, because a lot of our guys want good legislation. They want good things, and they need a support system. And you are that support system for Jeff. You know, he needs to know that when he's doing these good bills, that you're right there with him. You're not at home. You care enough to get down at the Capitol. And I'll tell you this, if we continue to do the same thing, we're going to have the same results over and over. Y'all, we are fighting for the life of this nation. If we're not going to get serious now, we're never going to get serious. In fact, Pat and I've talked, and we've about come to the conclusion, if we don't make some serious changes this year, it's time for me and Pat to come home. Because if people don't care now, when are they ever going to care? You know, we're fighting things like Common Core, and I am 190% against it. This man right here knows what he's talking about. And we have been working with Concerned Women of America. That's one of our groups, and they are our lead group on Common Core. Georgia had higher standards than the Common Core. There was no need in the world for us doing this. I will say this, I've come to the conclusion that Sonny Perdue and Kathy Cox did not have a clue what they were getting into. I think had they known, this would have never happened. I think I know Sonny well enough to know that. This is something that's been coming for a very long time. That we've just reached this pinnacle of where it's at. You cannot change one dot or one diddle of Common Core, and anybody that thinks they can are living in a fairyland. We are losing our autonomy over education completely. I know when we were meeting with the governor, one of the things he said was, you people don't understand. This is not the curriculum. This is just the testing. People, the testing drives the curriculum. I mean, the curriculum's got to teach to the test. That's just the way it is. And we can no longer afford to be ignorant with these things. We've got to be able to answer these issues right in their face. Obamacare, yes, it's extremely expensive, and yes, it's going to kill the health care in this country. But Common Core is going to kill the education system in this country. It's going to drive it down to nothing. I have never seen teachers so depressed over education, because you can no longer teach from your heart. You have a line item thing here, and you better teach to it, because you're going to be tested on it, and you're going to be graded according to the way the children learn on this test. Study it, learn it, up one side and down the other. I want to share with you a little something that we say at all of our meetings. And this is why Pat and I do what we do. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed. A democracy and a republic, a foreign nation of many foreign states, sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, humanity, and for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. This is why we do what we do. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. This is the American creed. How many people ever say that anymore? How many people even know we have an American creed anymore? So I'm going to leave y'all with a copy of it, because we give out copies at all of our meetings, and we recite it again just as a reminder of why we do what we do. You know, I am a Christian. The number one thing I do why I do is for the Lord. The number two thing that I do is for my family. Because, you know, one day my children are going to look at me and they're going to say, Nana, what happened? Where were you at and what were you doing when America was lost? And I want to be able to put that sweet baby on my lap and I want to say, sweetheart, I did everything in my power to be able to save this country. I'm sorry. You know, I don't want to have to say I'm sorry. I want to say, you know, all the people in this meeting and all across the state and all across this country, they rose up and they said no more. And you know what gives me hope? Duck Dynasty. I'm telling you, you saw in 2 days what can happen in this country when you put your mind to it. The people, the Christian people and the people, I mean, they just all said, no, not doing this. And it would brought them to their knees, every last one of them. Y'all, we can do this, but it's going to take a lot of participation, not a little bit. We've got to continue to build on our gun laws. We've got to stop Obamacare. We've got to stop Common Core. You know, we need, do y'all not think we need English as the official language?
Yes.
I mean, are these not common sense things?
U.S. laws for U.S. citizens.
Yes, and that's one of our bills. I was fixing to share with you. One of the things that has come out of our Capital Coalition of Conservative Leaders is we're doing it started out as a contract with Georgia, but it's ended up to be just our 2014 legislative priorities. We have 5 procedural changes, and actually 3 of these come from Mike Dudgeon. The first one is that a conference committee report must sit on a desk for 24 hours instead of 1 hour, and shall also be made available online at least 24 hours before a vote is taken on them. You know where most of our bad legislation comes from? Conference committees. They're slung out there at the last minute, and nobody has a clue what's happened, and they pass, and then we have to reap the consequences of it. We ask the U.S. Congress and Senate to not have to vote on a bill in an hour. Well, why? We don't want our guys voting on one either. We want them to have these bills for 24 hours. Number 2, when substitute bills are brought to committee, there must be copies for the audience. When you know what's going on, things change. Number 3, require that all bills released to legislators for a vote, a report shall also be made available to show what has changed from the previous version of the bill. Now, I think Mike has a program that they use within the legislature, but that needs to be used in the Senate, but it also needs to be given to us. When there's changes in the bill, we ought to know what they are. You know, how can you put pressure or talk or encourage a legislator if you don't know what's on the bill? Number 4 is recorded votes on all bills and amendments, both on the floor and in committee. Judy, I think Judy was with us when we were working on an immigration bill, and I think Judy was on one corner of the galley, I was on the other corner, and Pat, I think, was in the middle, and DA was in the middle. We watched them gut our bill all to pieces by hand votes. Nobody knew that. Nobody had a clue how these people were voting. And then when they gutted it all to pieces, they come out and voted for it on the floor. Yes, we're all for this bill. But we watched them. We saw what they did. That happens all the time in committee, and on floor votes. That needs to come to a halt. We ought to have a recorded vote on every bill. Number 5 is require, this is a little bit controversial, it's going to have to be worked through, but I can see the merits in it. Require, and this one wasn't from Mike, this one's from Josh McCoon. Require the first 20 days, legislative days, shall be only for consideration and passage of the budget. And the final 20 days shall be for general legislation. One of the reasons that bill is being brought forward is because they hold budget items over the legislators. And it's either you vote my way or you don't get what you need for your district. And we see that happen all the time. We'll just get the budget out of the way and then deal with legislation. There's a lot of neat things that can happen. And just like Jeff was saying, we have got a supermajority in the Senate. We only lack 6 votes having a supermajority in the House. Why aren't we doing these things? You know, why are we having to beg and plead and go up there and stomp on at the ropes trying to get people to do the right thing? Everybody up there just about claims to be a Christian. You know, why are we having to do this? Why aren't they just sitting down and looking at this stuff and saying, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is good, and we're going to do it? You know, why aren't we that light for all the rest of the country to see? We sat down this summer we've been meeting with the governor, and we sat down with some of the House people, and then we met them in St. Simon's, and then we sat down with the Senate leadership. And that's what we told them. You know, why are we allowing, you know, bad pieces of legislation to go through when we're in the majority? Why aren't we making these changes? And so that's our 5 procedural changes that we're wanting. Our bills, one of them is 707. Jeff's bill made the cut because it's a great bill. There's one going to be in the Senate, there's one going to be in the House. But that's a good bill and it should be passed. What can you do? Get up there and help Jeff. You know, get up there and work that line, and for anybody that, let him tell you who he needs help with, and get up there and work it. Don't sit at home. I learned you know what one of the biggest differences between Democrats and Republicans are? Democrats learn their issue. They learn their stuff, and they get out and go door to door registering people to vote. You know, they do. You know, they have a long-term plan. They don't care if it's slowed down a little bit. They just keep trugging right along with it until they get what they want, and get their people lined up to do what they want them to do, whether they have to pay them, whether they have to do whatever. You know what Republicans do? We sit in our recliner, we watch maybe Fox News, we watch Glenn Beck, and we watch whatever, and we think about what could be done. And we talk about what we could do, but we never get out of the recliner. And that's a big difference between Republicans and Democrats. We've got to get out of the recliner. Your children have got to mean so much to you that if you did it for no other reason, that you get up and get there. I am a great-grandmother, and why I want my baby. I look at what he could possibly be left to him, and it breaks my heart. You know, why? Why are we at this point in time in history? The good part is, God knows exactly where we're at, and we are here for a time such as this. You are here, I'm here. We're not here just to sit and take up space. We're here no matter what our age is. We're here to make that difference that needs to be made. And we got to do it. We can do it. Okay, another bill on our list is Georgia law for Georgia courts. And that's what she was talking about. That made our list because, you know, this is beginning to be a real issue, not only all over the country, but in Georgia. We've been trying for 4 years to get this bill passed. And we hear things like, you know, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce doesn't want the bill. It's a money issue. No, this is a sovereignty issue. You know, we're American, we're Georgians, we have laws, and in this bill, this is Josh McCoon's bill, in this bill it has been worked out for if it's an international trade agreement that needs to be, that those sort of things have been worked out in this bill. But we need this bill and we need your help with it. Another one is we always will have a Second Amendment bill. And so we thought we had it. That's the reason I can't go into a lot of detail, but we found out today that they're changing it some. So it was 512 from the House bill, it would be Senate Bill 101, but I think tomorrow we'll know the new number that it's going to be. It's coming out of the House. We need your help on that. Another bill is, well, the next two bills are our education bills, and I think I give each one of you a copy of that. I give you a postcard. You know when the rally is. This is one of those things. I know that the governor just polled Common Core, and I know up in this area and in North Georgia, it scored very high that y'all are against it. So I just hands to you because y'all have done a great job. Tanya and them have done something like 17 town hall meetings across the state with Senator William Ligon. William is our hero with Common Core. He has gone to the mat with us on this, and he's right. He's absolutely right. And so we need you at the Capitol to help us stand on Common Core, against Common Core. And of course the other one is the data bill, and I think you have a copy of that. The essence of what the data is. And I know the governor said that he pulled back and we weren't going to be giving out data, but we've been told by very reputable sources, don't believe a minute of that, not a minute of it. The way technology is today, they can get that. They can get every piece of it. They want 400 pieces of data on your child, whether it's what your religion is, if you got a gun in the house, you think of it, that's the information that they want. Why do they want that? Why is it any of their business? And then the next one, we're doing a religious freedom bill. They call it be able to say Merry Christmas. We've had some problems down in South Georgia where they don't even want you to say Merry Christmas in your school. They don't want you to give out a Christmas card. They don't want any kind of baby Jesus scenery or be able to draw it or print it or say it. Nothing. So this bill is by Mike Dugan in the Senate, and it's to be able to give us some religious freedom there. So those are our main 5 bills that we're going to be talking about, going to be working on this year. We have a good group of guys in the House. I think there is about 25 or 30 of you, isn't there?
25.
Yeah, that come together, y'all. They need all of us. They need us there to help on these bills. In fact, I think we're going to try to set up a meeting with all of them so they can tell us which bills that we can help with. When we don't help, let me tell you some of the problems that happen. Last year they passed a bill. It's a reciprocal driver's license bill. I don't know if y'all know about that or not, but the original bill was where anybody, I call it you have welfare, but this is rich welfare. It's entitlement program. Because evidently a lot of our business people feel like if they go to another country, they ought to be able to just go in there and reciprocate driver's license, not have to take a test, not have no signs, not have to do nothing. Just go there, sign your little piece of paper and get your driver's license. Well, that's what they wanted to do over here. But the original bill, you could have done it from Iran, Iraq, Cuba, China, or anywhere else. Does it not seem funny when we have to take everything but the kitchen sink down to the driver's license office to get our driver's license? But yet, we have corporate welfare that they don't, coming over here, all they have to do is walk in and be able to get a reciprocal driver's license. Something's wrong with this. We shouldn't be dealing with this kind of stuff, period. Period. You got the little postcard on Common Core. I'm asking you to please get that in. We had 10,000. This is Concerned Women of America made up 10,000 postcards. I know the governor's already been asked about it. He said he hadn't had time to look at them, but maybe he will. And it sends a powerful message. What can you do to make a difference? You can do things like these postcards. You can call his office. You're not going to talk to anybody. If you call Jeff's office or anybody else's office as a representative, all you're going to talk to is the secretary. I'll tell you a little funny story about that. When I was doing it for the Piedmont Kentucky Baptist Association, we were then working on this same-sex marriage bill to define marriages between a man and a woman. And praise God we got it back then, because we would never get it today. But anyway, I was going around and I happened to be in an office, and one of the secretaries was saying, so that's 7,000 votes for the legal women voters. And I thought, what is she talking about? 7,000 votes? So when she got off the phone, I said, what are you talking about, 7,000 votes from the legal women voters? And she said, well, they're called in to tell us that they don't want this bill. And I said, and that's the way you put it down? And he said, yes. I went around, I called my association. I said, how many people do I represent? And he said, 34,000. I went back around to every office, and I told him, I represent 34,000 people, and we want the sanctity of marriage bill. And so later on in the day, I ran across the chairman of the bill, and I told him, my name's Kay Godwin, I represent Piedmont Oklahoma Baptist Association, and I want you to know that I support this bill. And he said, you're the 34,000. And I said, yes, sir, I am. I said, but you need to know something. I said, I can no more stand up for those 34,000 people and tell you that every last one of them wants this than that woman with the 7,000 from the Legal Women Voters. I said, this is not funny. I said, this is serious stuff you're doing up here. And I said, you know, it takes tremendous sacrifice to come all the way up here for y'all to sit here and put 1, 2, 3, and take, now 1, 2, 3 is fine because if you're calling for your individual person, but 7,000 or 34, this isn't a joke, and it isn't a game. This is serious business. So we've learned a lot through the years, but the basics always come back to that is what is important. You need to make a friend of your legislator. Pat and I at one time knew every one of them's birthday. We give them Valentine's on Valentine's Day. We knew their pastor. We knew their best friend in that town. We had a file, a page file. And when we were having trouble with any legislator, we could turn to that page. And we could find, who is it, what church does he go to, who do we know that goes to that church? And Judy helped get a lot of that stuff together. I mean, she is phenomenal with that kind of stuff. And she's traveled her and her husband, all over this state, giving out voter guides, all over the state. We owe her and her husband a debt that can never be paid with doing that. So anyway, basic things never change. What makes a difference is getting yourself down to the Capitol, getting yourself on the telephone, filing cards, and then the most important thing is y'all getting involved in these elections. So we can do this. You can do this. And with God's help, we will do it.